Ozonics Killerwinds podcast back again. Episode 90.
90, 10 away.
Holy guacamole.
Yep.
If you would have told me that when we started this thing, we would get up to 90 episodes, that is a lot.
That is a lot. When you think of all the...
It's been a year?
Yeah, well over a year.
Dang.
Well over. Going to be two years in the spring.
Two years this spring?
Mm-hmm.
Holy crapper.
Yeah, because we started it, well, not really spring, June.
Yeah, and we released a few of them all right at once at the beginning.
Yeah, because we started doing them in the spring, but we didn't start posting them until like June, I think. But
sorry, I yawned.
But yeah, it'll be coming up on 2 years. It's pretty crazy to think about. It doesn't really feel like that, but
oh my goodness. It does not feel like it's been 2 years.
Yeah, but I mean, think
90th episode.
Yeah, but I mean, think of all the hours that we've
just spent a lot of time
been podcasting and then
just looking at your ugly mug.
And then all the time on the computer looking at tracks, and it's pretty crazy. It's really crazy.
I'll tell you what, and kudos goes to you because I have the easy part. I just sit here and blab. You have the hard part.
It's not that hard.
You have to do all the editing.
I'm quick now. I can do it with my eyes closed dang near. It's like turned into like muscle memory. It's pretty cool. I like doing it though.
Mm-hmm.
It's fun. It's super.
Well, and I think the idea behind the podcast has always been that I feel like this is a great way for us to be able to show who we really are.
Yeah, exactly.
Who Ozonics really is.
Yep.
You know, we work at Ozonics and we are part of this, and I think it's really fun to be able to share our experiences and the good times and the bad. You know, I always kind of said when we started this Ozonics Killerwinds podcast, the motto was going to be Ozonics hunting and everything in between.
Right, yeah.
And I've been trying to get you to let me talk about sports, but you won't let me. Because we could really go on some serious riff sessions if we got to talk about sports.
We kind of did last episode.
A little bit.
Just a little bit. We dabbled. But
and I love talking about sports.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'd have to call it the Ozonics/sports podcast if we start talking about sports.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's Ozonics hunting and everything in between. And sometimes sports is part of it too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But yeah, it's been pretty wild. So what are we talking about today?
Man, kind of a lot. I mean, not really a lot, but it's just kind of like a deeper kind of topic.
Something that I would think when people are listening to this, I think there's probably more people that have experienced this or deal with this or something kind of along these lines than people probably would usually admit to.
Yeah, selfishly, I kind of hope so.
Yes.
A little bit, honestly.
Yes. Something that we've talked about talking about for a while,
mm-hmm.
and then we just haven't.
Yeah.
But now we're going to.
Yes.
And again, kudos to you for being willing to talk about it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's been me that's been holding off on this just because...
Let me give context.
Well, I was just going to say, to preface it, I mean... It's kind of embarrassing, but it's really not, but it's whatever.
But dude, that's what I like about you is that you're just like, whatever.
Yeah, whatever.
That's why you're awesome.
Not going to fake it. It's a real thing.
Yep, it's a real thing. So here's the context. So Nick and I started hunting together. This will be the third fall that we've hunted together this next fall.
Coming up, yeah.
Yep. So Nick started at Ozonics in like February, March, April, and that kind of time period. And then
February.
We started hunting in the spring together, turkey hunting, and that was out of ground blinds. And that was kind of a good trial run just to see, there have been a lot of years that I used to do a lot of filming stuff, and then I just didn't.
Yeah.
And so when you there's definitely like a rhythm to it, and there's just a whole different kind of procedure of how things go and what you got to do and what you got to bring and how you set up and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
So there were some growing pains during that first kind of spring, which I thought that was good to get that out of the way.
Yeah. That first spring went really good.
Yeah.
I thought.
Yeah, no, really good.
I mean, because it is always kind of a...
I mean, we didn't even know each other really.
No, so it can be
And then you saw the Ric Flair.
Yeah. Woo! Yeah. So it can kind of be... yeah.
Sorry.
So it can be kind of a... just that first kind of time filming somebody that you don't really know, it can be kind of...
Do you like him? Do you want to punch him?
Right.
Do you want to wrestle him?
No, 100%.
Do you want to put him in a chokehold?
And it's...
Give him a high five.
It's a very important time.
Hit him with a stick.
Yeah.
In the back of the leg. It's important.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm just rezzing you.
No, you're good.
So it was an important time to try to get to know each other, and it worked out great.
Yeah.
So then we felt like we had the engine humming.
Yeah.
Going into fall.
Yeah.
Well, the first time I really noticed it, we set a tree stand down in Thermal Hub.
Yeah.
That was in like July.
Yeah. Early.
Yep. And I didn't really think anything of it. I really didn't. And it was in kind of a real sketchy tree that it was on. The Thermal Hub is basically, just this little, it's like 3 or 4 ravines that kind of come together, and then it turns into this little creek that runs down through it. Mm-hmm. And there's just ridges that in kind of 3 of the 4 directions. And it's a hard place to hunt because it just swirls in every direction.
Yeah.
And I had been talking about it, and we knew we were going to be trying to do more stuff for ozonics and when we could, and da-da-da-da. So it's like, you know what? Let's get a stand in there. Mm-hmm. So the idea was at first we were just going to set stands for singles, but then set them up for doubles. And then when the hunt came, we would set it up for a double.
Yes.
And that's what we did there too.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah, we just had one stand up there.
Yep. Well, the way that tree was, it kind of leaned, it was on the ridge, but it kind of leaned out.
Yeah.
It didn't lean back, but it leaned out like over. And then when you got up there, you're like, whoa. It was kind of an odd feeling because you were looking at the ground this way, but then the other ground this way was like 25 feet away.
Yeah.
It was like really far. So I'm shimmying up there, and I'm putting the ladder sections up and getting up, and then I finally get the stand up. I get it all done. And you were kind of like, you were sifting stuff up on the bow rope and stuff, putting up the lifeline to get all that stuff going. And then we got it all done, and I was like, climb up and see what you think, And you put my harness on and stuff, and then we had a lifeline, you pulled yourself up, but you got like halfway up, and it was a whole side of you that I'd never seen before.
Yeah.
And you like really locked up.
Yeah.
I have a really funny picture, of course, because I didn't know what was going on. So, of course, I'm laughing.
Yeah.
And I've got a funny picture of you sitting in the tree stand, and you were like, I can't move. I remember you're like, I don't know if I can get out of this thing. I'm like, all right.
Yeah.
See you later.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I was razzing you. And I'm standing on the ridge kind of even with you, and I'm taking pictures of you, and you're like really mad. You got a really mad look on your face. And it took you a while to get down.
Yeah.
When you were getting down, I mean, you were like, because you had to kind of turn around, and like the step was a little bit to the left. You kind of reach your foot over to it. And I'm like, hey man, you're tied in. You know what I mean? Like you're tied in. If you fall, you're just gonna hang there. I'm like, but yeah, you were not having it.
Yeah.
You got down. You're like, I ain't ever hunting that stand. There ain't no way I'm getting back up there.
Right.
And I was like, man, what is up?
Yeah.
And then the fall came, and there was the same type of thing.
Yeah.
Where you really got super freaked out.
Yeah.
But it was weird because when I started talking to you about it, it didn't seem like you were that afraid of heights.
No, I'm not at all.
Yeah.
Like at all.
So I'm like, well, I'm confused. Like, you're not afraid of heights. Like, no, I'm not afraid of heights at all. I'm like, well, you're afraid of something. Like, you're afraid of something. Because you get up here and you just like, you can't handle it. Mm-hmm. And it's like, it was just the weirdest thing.
Yeah.
Well, that happened the whole first fall. And again, kudos to you because you really gritted it out. Mm-hmm. I mean, and we've talked about this before I've known you, and for the longest time, especially going to a compound, recurve, there was some stands that I would set high, but for the most part, recurve stands were at like kind of that 15-foot mark, and you were like right over a trail where it would be a pretty close shot. Started hunting with my compound, I started to go a lot higher.
Yeah.
And in the last however many years, it's been higher. You know what I mean? And now there's times that I'll get to the end of a lifeline.
Yeah, definitely.
And all of a sudden the lifeline is, I get to the bottom of a tree and I'm tying it off. I'm like, whoa, this lifeline is like reaching above my head.
Yeah.
Or you're having to clip kind of up a little bit higher.
Right.
It's not reaching to the ground even close.
Yeah.
And so that's not every single spot.
Right.
But some of them are pretty high.
Yeah.
And so when you start hunting, we were trying to turn some of these singles into doubles. It was like, some of them you were kind of hanging in weird positions.
Yeah.
Like the bottom corner.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
The bottom corner, that tree is, it's in a great spot.
Yeah, it's awesome.
But the tree, it couldn't be any less straight if it tried.
Yeah.
The tree goes at like a 60-degree angle like this, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You go up, not even climbing like vertically, you kind of almost feel like you're climbing across a bridge.
Yeah.
You climb up, and then you get like 10 feet off the ground, then you go vertically up.
Yeah.
And then at the top, the tree kind of goes like this, and then it canopies at the top.
Yeah.
So we're at the top where it canopies, and I have a stand there, and then we had to put a stand off to the left, and you're kind of like looking down onto no man's land.
Yeah.
You're not even looking at you're not even looking at the trunk of the tree. The trunk of the tree kind of like goes away from you.
Yeah. Yep.
And I understood that one.
Yeah.
But yeah, it just kept getting worse and worse. And so then we were kind of started talking about it more. And here come to find out, you had an experience where you fell.
Yeah.
So why don't you go into that a little bit, and then we'll kind of tie back into
Yeah.
how we kind of got to where we are.
Yeah. So it was the fall of 21. It was my first year filming. I shot a buck on film on October 23rd. And in Wisconsin, normally gun seasons come in around the 20th of November. Give or take a couple days. So in my mind, I was like, well, I want to keep filming as much as I can. So every single weekend I would text buddies.
Hey, who's around?
Yeah. Hey, who?
Anybody gonna be going? I'll go with you.
Yeah. Yeah. I just wanted to just keep filming as much as possible, just because that was right when I was getting my love for filming. So my one buddy, he was chasing a giant 8-pointer, huge. And he's like, I got this stand that I've been seeing him out of. He's like, it's, November. He's like, I think I got a really good chance at killing him here. I'm like, well, perfect. I'm like, I'm going to go buy a hang-on stand, and I'll come with you, and I'll just go up the tree first, hang the stand, and we'll be good to go. He's like, yeah, let's do it. I'm like, all right. So we went up there. It was a morning hunt. We get to the tree, and it's pretty high. Not crazy high, but it's high enough. And it wasn't sticks; it was screw-in steps with a lifeline. So I clipped in. I was going up. I had my camera bag and my stand on my back, which that was kind of a bad idea. But I didn't know better. It was just kind of my first time doing something like that. And I'm like just about to the top, and
Screw-in steps.
Screw-in steps. Yep. And they were
like the old style green ones that look like a zigzag kind of.
Yep. And they had if I remember correctly, I want to say they had even like the rubber coating on them. So like it wasn't like gritty, it wasn't very gritty. Like you couldn't, whatever. But it was a cold, frosty kind of morning. And as I'm getting up there, my foot slipped off the peg. And so there I was hanging from the lifeline with my backpack on and the stand on the back. Well, it's kind of funny. He purposely put them kind of spaced out pretty far. Yeah. So then he said that so his brothers wouldn't go up there and hunt it. But where I ended up falling, my feet were like just barely touching one of the pegs. And I could, of course, grab, but I had so much weight on my back, I couldn't get myself up.
It was hard to pull yourself up.
I couldn't get myself up. So my buddy, he's a little bit shorter, but he's super athletic. He was able to crawl up to me and then kind of get around the tree and then at least get some tension or get under me, so then it wasn't just to give me some slack. So whatever, I got down, but I was really, really freaked out. Yeah. Like it was really, really scary. And I don't know, maybe if it was because I had so much weight on my back, you just kind of felt helpless a little bit, And so, yeah.
It was a traumatizing type deal.
Yeah, it was. I just remember getting to the base and heart rate's going 1,000,000 miles an hour. I'm dripping sweat. Like, it just really, really, really creeped me out, like, really bad. I'm like, what the heck are we doing? And so ever since then, getting into tree stands kind of spooks me out a little bit. And, I grew up hunting my entire life. And the only thing to say to that, though, is I never really did hang-on stands. It was always ladder stands. But, like, even getting into ladder stands kind of...
started to not bother you.
Yeah, it started to kind of get to me. And so at the time, I didn't really think anything of it. I'm like, oh, you're just creeped out, whatever. But once I started really filming and seeing how guys are hunting and getting up there really easily, I'm like, okay, there's definitely something wrong with my mindset, my mind in general. Because, like, as soon as I get up there, everything goes downhill really, really fast.
Yeah, you get you're it's like anxiety, it's like
super
pressure.
bad anxiety,
it's
sweating, shaking. It's really hard because with what I do for a job, there's a lot of stuff that's kind of riding on the cameraman, whether it be setting up really expensive camera equipment. Like, you kind of have to be locked in and really, comfortable up there to be
Deliberate about what you're doing.
Exactly.
And feeling like you're in the moment. You're not worrying about
everything else. Yeah. And so, so then I knew that throughout the rest of the year, I kind of knew that, like, okay, I need to figure this out, like, right now. And it especially hit when I knew that I got the Midwest Whitetail internship. I'm like, okay, this is what I'm going to be doing. Like, I need to figure this out. So like I said, I had the stand, I bought some sticks, and every single day in the summer, I would set a set and just sit in the stand and like move around and stuff. But even then, like after doing that for days on end, like it was still kind of,
you didn't feel comfortable.
Didn't feel comfortable. Well, I ended up filming Gavin Katurba, who is the main producer, one of the main producers for Midwest Whitetail now. Well, he's a big saddle hunter, and we were in saddles the entire time. And when we were in saddles, I was totally fine. Didn't bother me like at all. Like I really enjoyed it.
Saddle hunting would make it go away.
Yeah. And so I'm like, but in my mind, I'm like, oh, I got over it. Like the stuff I did in the summer, kind of prepared for it, really did prepare me, and I'm totally fine.
Yeah, you started saddle hunting. You're like, well, hey, that it worked, and now I'm over it. Like I'm past it.
Yeah, I'm like, I'm totally good.
Yeah.
And so then the next year, following Midwest Whitetail, was with you, and I was
Onyx.
Back into a normal hang-on set, and instantly everything was back to square one. I'm like, what the heck?
Yeah.
And it was like, it's just so weird.
It's paralyzing.
It's horrible. Like,
and the only thing I can relate to it is like when I see blood.
Yeah.
That's why I'm about blood.
Yeah.
Same type of thing. I had a traumatic experience. Years ago, I cut my finger. I ended up in an ER.
Yeah.
This doctor comes in and she was like, you need to calm down.
Yeah.
I was white as a ghost, going into shock. She's like, your finger's going to be okay.
Yeah.
She's like, here's an orange juice.
Yeah.
Why are you reacting this way?
Right.
And I'm like, I have no idea.
Yeah.
So she fixed me up, cauterized my finger, cauterized the skin and stuff. Mm-hmm. And she came back in a bit later and she sat down beside me. She was like, can we talk? I'm like, sure. And she started talking to me about PTSD. She started talking to me about if I had ever had it. She goes, have you ever had a traumatic experience? Something in the recent? I said, well, I've never dealt with this before. Yeah. Did something happen?
Yeah.
I said, well, actually, years ago, I was getting in a shower, which, by the way, put a rubber shower mat in your shower, put one foot in, and I slipped and fell, and I dislocated this finger, and it was over here.
Yeah.
And I grabbed it, and I pulled it back into place, and I came unglued. Same thing. I went into shock. I was white as a ghost, shaking.
Yeah.
It took like a half hour for me to get back to like neutral.
Yeah.
And she said, well, that explains it. And she's like, obviously that's turning into something that you really have a problem with blood.
Right.
And if I see blood, it's gotten a little bit better, I feel like.
Yeah.
But if it's like a real traumatic type thing or something with the kids,
yeah,
I see blood.
Well, and
I feel exactly what you feel. It's just like a paralyzing feeling.
Well, and it's funny too because it's clearly
it's a dizzying, it's a nauseous, it's a uncontrollable type thing.
Well, and it's funny too because it's very specific to humans, like human blood.
Yeah,
like
yeah. I know.
Deer and stuff, and that's kind of the same thing with me because
I can gut a deer all day long.
Yeah,
and then if I'm gutting a deer and I accidentally hit my finger,
game over.
Oh, buddy, watch out.
Yeah.
Hence why I am so careful with knives.
Yeah.
But if I get a cut, well, it's a downhill slide.
Yeah, and that's the thing that was constantly just eating me away a little bit was like flying is one of my favorite things to do. I love flying. I love being in the window seat. I look out that window and look down the entire time, and I love it. I seriously really enjoy it. I love going on roller coasters. I love going on the highest water slide at the park. Like, that stuff does not bother me.
Yeah.
I love it. I really like it. And so when all this started happening, I'm like, what is going on?
Yeah.
And I kind of expressed that stuff to you this fall, like how, like, I don't know why.
Well, it actually expressed it the fall before.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was the fall before because then you explained, hey, because I was like, what is going on? Like, what is going on? Are you afraid of heights?
Yeah.
So we started trying to figure it out. Mm-hmm. Well, then we came back to the thing. He explained everything you talked about now. Then of course I'm Mr. Fix It, right? Like problems, we've got a problem, let's solve it.
Yeah.
So then I'm like, okay, well, you felt better with saddle hunting. Well, let's try saddle hunting.
Yeah.
Like, let's have you saddle hunt in the stand beside me.
Yeah.
But even that at times, like the platforms and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So we're small or whatever. So then that's how we kind of started this whole saddle standing.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's where that kind of came from.
Yep.
Because we would have some spots that would have double. Then we started setting double sets. And then instead of setting a double set for like a tree stand, a hunter and a tree stand, and a hunter running camera, we set a tree stand for hunter and a saddle for a hunter running camera.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yep.
And so then that's where the whole saddle standing, kind of got birthed out of.
Yeah.
And that's what we did last 2 falls ago.
Yep.
The first fall, we really did a lot of saddle standing, and we felt like we kind of found more of a groove.
Yeah.
But still, getting up and getting down was always an issue.
Yeah.
Setting up and tearing down was always an issue.
Mm-hmm.
And it was hard to watch.
Yeah.
It's hard to understand.
Yeah.
Because it's something that you love to do.
Yeah.
And then,
It's a huge hill that every single hunt you have to get over.
it felt like it made it not enjoyable at all.
Yeah, exactly. And the thing that was great though is the saddle standing made such a difference.
And we got to the saddle standing point because you kept describing, you're like, well, if I'm tied in, if I can feel the tension,
Yes.
then I'm good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so the saddle, I just feel comfortable because it's just like Cole said, like I constantly have pressure on kind of my backside, and like I just know that like I can't go any further back.
Yeah.
And it's something too about looking at the tree, because like I'm going through a bunch of footage right now, and that footage we had from the corner stand, when we had that really good hunt where those 2 bucks came right under us,
Yeah.
I wasn't in a saddle that day, but I was watching the GoPro footage, and I'm turned and faced the tree the entire time.
Yeah.
And I'm up there laughing and having a good time. And so there's something about just seeing the tree too, which is just, so crazy. It's so wild. I hate it, but that's what it is. It's just what it is. But so we do some more digging.
Yeah. So we're trying to give you all this context because none of it makes any sense.
Doesn't make any sense.
It doesn't make any sense. It's like, okay, so let's recap. You're not afraid of heights. You don't mind roller coasters. You'll go on the tallest water slide, everything else. I've seen you do that too. You're not afraid of roller coasters.
Yeah.
I'm not a huge fan of roller coasters. And it's funny because I'm not like a big fan of high heights.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I'm not afraid of heights, but I don't. We went to a water park this last summer, and Bo and Jet, let's go up. They had this blue and red, like straight down, like, let's go. I marched my fanny all the way up there. And I marched my fanny all the way back down.
Yeah.
I was like, well, gonna take the walk of shame. Yeah. And I walked all the way back down. I'm like, no way. I ain't doing that.
Yeah.
I'm in a situation, I'm like, could I die? I could die. And I'm like, nope.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Which is funny because I like to go on really steep mountains and sheep hunting.
Yeah.
But I don't 100% really enjoy that either.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But I like what's at the end of the rainbow. But so we're gathering all this together. It's like, you're not afraid of heights. You don't like being in a tree stand, but you don't mind saddles. And it's about something with the tension or just being able to see the tree. So then one day we're sitting in the office, like last summer, before the deer season, because you're thinking after the deer season, it didn't go well.
Yeah.
And so you're like, I got to figure this out. Like, what am I got to do? What do I got to do? Because I don't want to go through this year. And last year you were filming me a ton. And this year it was like Operation Get You a Buck. So it was like you were hunting a ton more.
Yeah.
You're like, well, how am I going to do this?
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm dealing with all this, and I feel like I'm trying to, and then we got into this fall. So we thought, okay, well, we'll have you saddle hunt or saddle stand out of the tree stands that I have set.
Mm-hmm.
Or a couple times you just tried to sit in my stands, but not stand up.
Yeah.
And then you kind of, okay, maybe I'm over it. Well, then you were drawing your bow, and then it would come back again.
Well, what it was, where it really came back hard this year was, like you said, we were sitting in a new stand that we hung, and it was a little bit lower, and I could get into it really easy. It was a dead straight tree, wasn't very high.
Co-op spot.
Yep.
Co-op first spot.
Yep. Felt super comfortable getting up and in there. Whatever. I would just get in. I would stand with my back up against the tree. It'd be fine. Well, I had one hunt in there. A small buck was coming in, and I knew I was going to shoot him. But I'm like, I'm just going to go through this process. I haven't been in that situation in a while. So I get up, I grab my bow, I'm holding it, and felt totally fine. I go to range. as soon as I closed my eyes and hold the range up, it was like all the feeling in my body left the chat. I was just like super dizzy, just like, I'm like, okay, like this ain't good.
It just hit you like a
It
brick.
hit me like a ton of bricks. I'm like, oh my gosh.
Here we are again.
I'm like, you gotta be kidding me. I'm like, there's no way.
I remember you got a hold of, when we talked to you afterwards, you were like so frustrated.
I'm like, I'm 12 feet off the ground.
In the perfect spot with flat
stand,
ground all
flat
around,
everywhere.
flat
I'm
ground
like,
all around us. Like it was like, couldn't have been any more set perfectly.
and at that point too, it's like we're in the season. I'm like, really now what? Like, what is the next step now? Like, I don't know what to do.
Yeah.
And so
then so now you come full circle to what we really wanted to talk about today.
yes. Sorry for that long explanation,
No,
but it's kind of, it needs to be said all
Yeah,
of it.
it gives you context.
Yeah.
So we do all this. So we're sitting here and I get out my phone and I'm like, you're not afraid of heights, but you're afraid of being in a stand. So I typed in like, you're not afraid of heights, but you're afraid of slopes or something.
Yeah,
like,
I can't remember what it was.
Like you're not afraid of heights, but you're afraid of being able to see down through something.
yeah.
And what came up within like the first Google search
Yeah.
was something called bathmophobia.
Yeah. I'll read the definition of it.
So when you read the definition, when we read the definition, when we looked into this, instantly we knew this is what it was.
Yeah.
So bathmophobia, what is it?
So bathmophobia, it is the fear of stairs.
Or slopes.
Or slopes. Yep. Bathmophobia is a fear of stairs. You may be afraid of falling down a set of stairs or steep incline. A traumatic accident involving a fall, injury, or death may cause this specific phobic disorder. Stairs exist in many places, making them hard to avoid. You can overcome this fear of stairs with the help of psychotherapies.
Yep.
And so I couldn't find the one that we found that day, but the one we found that day made a comment about basically exactly what I'm feeling. Like, you're not afraid of heights, but you're still afraid of like some incline and stuff like
and
that.
And it talked about like the depth
and gapping.
Yes, gapping between stairs, or being able to see through like a graded platform.
Yes.
Like if you're from Iowa, there's grain elevators all over the place. There's a big grain elevator and there's a big grain bin, and you're like, oh, look at that grain bin. You're not afraid of being on the grain bin, but if there's a graded walkway around the outside, no, not for you.
Yes, and
you don't like to be able to see down through it.
And that's literally, and like the stairs thing, it kind of came full circle.
Stairs in the office.
There's stairs in the office that have gapping in them, and it's kind of steep. And every time I get to the top of it, I get the exact same feeling. I'm like, are you kidding me? Like,
they're like these cement stairs that there's the run. But on the rise, it's just open air.
Yeah.
So it's just cement, and then the rise is open, then the run is cement.
Yeah.
And so you can see between them.
Yeah. And that gets me. And then I was thinking even deeper, and I'm like, I get creeped out at stadiums too. Like if I'm in the nosebleeds. And I'm like, God, this is all like really starting to make sense.
Bathmophobia.
Bathmophobia. Yes. So I'm like, well, I mean, that literally, and then it said the symptoms of it
were everything that you were dealing with:
chills, dizziness, excessive sweating, heart palpitations, nausea, shortness of breath, trembling or shaking, upset stomach or indigestion. Every single one I get when I get up into a stand. Every single one.
I've experienced
every single one.
My
stomach just starts to hurt so bad.
You start sweating. V18. Remember that day? Holy guacamole.
And you want to know what, too? That morning when we were hanging that set, you had that stand kick out.
Oh, yeah.
Because I remember we didn't get set up until like right at light because you were having issues getting it set. And when I got up there, I was really not doing good. I was sweating profusely.
Yeah, because
sweating.
we already had a stand set, and then I was trying to set the other one, and I was in the lifeline, but I just wanted to make sure because you have to kind of step around weird, and I kind of just put my weight on the side of it just to see if it kick out, and it did.
Yeah, it kicked out.
And I was okay, and I grabbed a tree.
Yeah,
I was
you
like,
were in
okay.
a safe, super safe spot.
But it kicked out really good. And I was like, okay, got to reset that.
And I saw that, and I'm like, oh boy, here we go. And we've told the story before, but I had to get down and go to the bathroom because my stomach was seriously hurting so bad.
Yeah.
Like I was dripping sweat. It was really bad. But that literally every single one of those symptoms happens when I'm in a hang-on stand.
Yeah.
Every single one.
So you got a case of the Bathmophobia.
Yeah.
And so then I think to fast forward to the end of the story, we haven't really come up with an answer.
Not really.
No. I mean, I think the first step in this has been really addressing it. And even like what I deal with, I could probably do some research to figure out whatever this fear of blood is and what that means or something, the same kind of thing.
Yeah.
Your fear of spiders, fear of heights, fear of airplanes.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a guy on Instagram that has a fear of food.
Right.
You know, they showed him like trying to eat watermelon and he was like losing his mind.
Yeah.
And it's like, you don't like it, you watch it and you kind of initially like, oh, it's kind of funny, but then you kind of feel bad.
Yeah.
And that's where initially I kind of feel like a real not nice person. Cause at first I was like really laughing about it, right? Like it was like the kind of the butt of the joke for a while.
Yeah.
And then when it was like, okay, this isn't, you have a real problem.
Yeah, exactly.
And now I guess the nice thing initially is you've identified it.
Yeah.
Which I guess I would say that it's not gone away, but I feel like now that you identified it, that felt, I think from my perspective, from the outside looking in, that helped.
Yeah, it definitely did. And this year went really good.
So one more thing. Even when we initially found that out, we just Googled it on YouTube. We found videos of people that would be at a stadium. There was one of like a woman at a soccer field. And then there was and they weren't even that steep. Mm-hmm. And he was like, we'll climb up those stairs. And she was like, nope.
Yeah.
She would not do it.
Yeah.
The farm, the steps from the upstairs and downstairs are kind of steep.
Yeah.
And you were like, yeah, man, I don't really like those stairs.
Yeah.
You're like, there's a railing. And I'm like, yeah. And I took out the railing because we were painting. And you're like, yeah, I'm not a big fan of that.
Yeah.
And so it's just interesting that it's always kind of there.
Yeah. Well, and I really think that this is kind of the case. I mean, we don't know for sure, but
we're not doctors.
No, but
we're hillbilly scientists here.
But the thing is like reading some of this stuff today, it's like people will like take different roads to work so they don't have to take stairs. Like, that's not me.
No. It's not that bad.
Like, and so that's where I kind of feel like it did kind of stem from the incident of falling out of the tree. I feel like it did kind of stem from that because it's there, but it's not so bad where it affects every single day life. It's just really affects the times when I'm trying to hunt on my hang-on.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And or just trying to, or just being up in the air. And so you what that really meant for the rest of this fall is, and we've talked about this before, you did pretty much exclusively saddle hunting.
Yeah.
Or saddle standing.
Yeah.
Even out of like double ladder stands.
Yeah.
There's only a couple of them are set where you can saddle stand and kind of face backwards out of it. That seemed to make it a little bit better.
I thought it was way better.
Yeah.
And I think too, I felt really comfortable this year too, climbing up the sticks and stuff like that way better than I did before. So I think that, I think that was kind of more of an issue of not doing it very much and just not hunting that high growing up. And I think I'm over that part. Like, I mean, you've seen me, like, I've crawling up.
Well, perfect example. We were taking stands off public ground.
Yeah.
And I didn't try to lead on that I was nervous about that for you because I don't want to freak you out. But we had 3 stands to take down in a public piece. So I walked to one, you rode past me to another, and then I got done with the one, and then I went over to the other and took the other one down.
Yeah.
I thought, well, we'll see how this goes.
Yeah.
And you climbed up. You had to put a couple sticks up because we take the bottom ones off.
Yeah.
You had to climb up, take the lifeline down, do everything you need to do to get down safely, take the stand down, and you did all that.
Yeah.
And you didn't really like come back with a horror story.
No, it was totally 110% fine. And I mean, I did a hanging hunt this year too, which I thought was kind of a big step because that's a lot of stuff going on at the top of the tree when you're getting the last stuff set up, you're getting the stand set up. So I feel I feel really good about getting up and down. And like when you're hanging stuff up, sometimes like with the stand, we don't have a rope to get up there. I mean, I'll crawl up without a lifeline and be able to get to a spot to hang it up. I don't think I could have done that before.
Yeah.
Like, so I feel like I'm getting better at getting up there and stuff like that. And then the hunting out of the saddle has helped so much. I feel so comfortable in a saddle, and like, you know, I shot those 2 deer out of a saddle, and it like, I feel good about that situation, honestly.
Yeah.
But
so then that's the other thing is when you look at bathmophobia, you look at, well, how do you try to get over it? And one of them that we were seeing a lot of is exposure therapy, which is what we saw in a lot of the videos, which there was some sort of psychiatrist that was with them and would try to, no pun intended, but kind of walk them through it, like walk them down and up the stairs and make them see that there was nothing to be afraid of.
Right.
You know, you talked about hypnosis.
Yeah.
You know, like you hear those things on the radio every once in a while where you could go to like a place to get hypnotized to quit smoking or whatever. Brain's a very powerful thing.
Right.
I don't know that I like the idea of getting hypnotized. That seems a little freaky. I don't know if I want somebody like controlling my mind.
Yeah.
Maybe we're already getting controlled right now. Maybe we're in the Matrix.
Yeah.
Are we in the Matrix? I think we're in the Matrix. I'm just kidding. But so I don't know. I mean, I think what you're just trying to do is you're just trying to work through it. And I wanted to talk about this right away. I'm like, let's talk about it. And you're like, no. And it is a bit embarrassing.
Yeah, it definitely
And
is.
I appreciate you being willing to talk about it. But I think the part of it is that there could be other people out there that are dealing with type of thing.
Yeah.
I think sometimes with all things, there's this, you know, idea of how to do it.
Yeah.
You know, I'll tell you what, maybe this is a far stretch of a correlation, but I'll tell you what, as a young person getting into hunting, that's how I felt about scent control.
Yeah.
I thought there was this idea of how everybody did it, right? That everybody went out and they used sprays and suits and all this stuff, and they never got winded.
Right.
So I did what everybody else did, I thought, and I went out and bought the sprays and I bought the suits and I bought all the stuff. And then I got out there and I got winded. And then I thought, well, geez, am I doing something wrong? I remember at first feeling like embarrassed. Like, gosh, I just must not be a very good hunter. Like, I don't know what I'm doing. Like, how am I getting winded? Like, I'm watching all these hunting videos and all these guys, and they're like getting deer on the downwind side. They're killing deer, but I can't even get a deer on the downwind side. I'm using the same stuff.
Right.
Well, I'm not using the right stuff. I need to use this other brand, blah, 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 blah. And I did that for a long time, you know, because there's this kind of this idea of this expectation or whatever.
Yeah.
You know, but there's more to it than that.
Yeah. 100%.
You know, and being afraid of heights is a real thing too, right?
Yeah.
If you're afraid of heights, and then it's like, okay, well, hunting over a tree stand, that doesn't sound like it's going to be fun.
Yeah.
You know? So yeah, it's like, I think it's just it's just interesting that, yeah, I don't know. It'd be interesting to know if anybody else has this type of an issue or just if they've ever experienced something like that.
Yeah.
Or whatever type of thing that maybe a traumatic thing that led to something, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, it's just really interesting. So like I said, I don't know that, I think you're still kind of in the middle of it. Definitely
think
feels
so
like
too.
it's gotten better.
Yeah, it's for sure gotten better. I think the saddle has really helped a lot. And yeah, I don't know. We'll see. We'll see what happens.
But I think the thing too to mention is to kind of like take this into the next part of the conversation is, you know, it all started and stemmed from falling.
Yeah.
And I've always said, I think that gravity is the invisible enemy of every bow hunter.
Yeah.
Gravity does the same thing to every person. It pulls you straight down.
Yep.
And for a lot of years, from when I was a teenager into my 30s, no, I shouldn't say that. Being a teen until my mid-20s.
Yeah.
Mid-20s, good 10 years, 15 years there, I never wore a harness.
Yeah.
Never wore one. I never thought twice about it. I would sleep in the stand without a harness on.
Yeah.
I remember times that would hunt my recurve, I would just lean straight back into the tree and like push myself against the tree and then fall asleep. And then you feel yourself kind of fall forward, you know?
Yeah.
Like, it's just stupid.
Yeah,
like I think about it now,
exactly.
it's so stupid.
Yeah.
So stupid. And I think what changed it for me was getting married, having kids, more responsibility. All of a sudden, I remember at times where all of a sudden I started thinking about that. When I used to work in Colorado as a videographer, and we got to travel different places. I met a couple different guys that had fallen out of stands that were paralyzed. And that completely changed their life.
Yeah, exactly.
And so, yeah, that really sucks. And so then that really instantly, I was like, okay, yep, getting a harness. And now I've gone through, harnesses, they don't last forever. They have an expiration date.
Yeah.
Gosh, I'm probably on my, they're usually about a 5-year deal. I'm on my probably 5th one or whatever it's been now, or they just kind of start to look, they get a little bit frayed and worn out. You get a new one. Or I had to get a new one because I fell.
Right.
I was in a hang-on stand hunting with my recurve. I wasn't very high off the ground. I was probably only like 12, 15 feet. It was in a really, really big oak tree. And the way the tree was, that's all the higher that you could get. But I basically kind of hid behind this big split of the oak tree facing north. The deer would come from the south. And I could basically stand south and kind of peek around the tree and see them coming and then just sit there and wait. And as soon as they walked by, I draw my bow and bam, it was a slam dunk.
Yeah.
Well, I got a extendable saw like those, that stands out. And there was a couple branches that I was like, gosh, I would love to get these cut out. It was early in the year. So I was like, you know what I'll do? Bring that with me at the end of the day or at the end of the morning. I'll just cut them out quick. So I started doing that. I'm cutting them. And I was tied in. And now, was that part of the problem too? And I think sometimes that's the other part of this conversation. Do you get a bit more cavalier because you do have a harness on? That was probably me that day.
Yeah.
So I was leaning out, little farther. And I was trying to cut this branch. And I was, you're going back and forth. And I'm like, I just need one more oomph and I should get it. And I went like that. And I lost my balance. And as fast as it happened, I was just dangling there.
Yeah.
And a lot of people don't realize that on the tether that goes up to the tree, the strap or however you want to call it, I guess it's not a tether, but the strap that goes from your harness that you're connecting onto whatever you got wrapped around the tree, it's looped over on itself.
Yeah.
And the whole idea behind that is if you fall, those rip.
Yeah.
And it slows you down.
Right.
So it's not so much of a jolt.
Yeah.
Depending on how far you fall. Mm-hmm. That's the other thing I always talk about, trying to keep your strap so it's you're not like got it really low and then all of a sudden you fall even farther.
Really hard, yeah.
All of a sudden you, instead of falling a foot or two, you're falling like 5 feet.
Yeah.
Anyway, when I fell, I got all done and I got home and I just kind of dangled there and I remember being like, whoa, I just fell. Like I'd never fallen before. I'm like, holy cow, I just fell off a tree stand. And I had to kind of turn myself around and I grab the thing, kind of push my feet and then get my knee on the stand and then kind of climb up. And I just kind of stood there like, whoa, what just happened?
Yeah.
It didn't like freak me out that much, but it was just kind of like how did this how did it happen? Like, wow, that happened fast.
Right.
And I got home and I looked at that strap. Well, here those things had got it all undone.
Yeah.
I was like, well, so I get on the internet, I'm looking, I was like, well, I guess time to get a new harness.
Yeah.
So it happens, it happens more often than you think. I was actually, I was with a friend of mine. We were doing like a videoed hunt. And, it's my buddy John, you know what I mean? He's a heck of a nice guy. And we had a double set that was set up and we got up in there and, he kind of talked about that he didn't wear harnesses all the time. And I'm like, well, they'll like require you a harness, you got to wear one. And if you don't have one, like I've got an extra or whatever, but like, and I was really adamant, like, man, I feel really comfortable if you had one on,
Yeah.
And he's like, oh, and maybe he did have one or whatever it was. And so we got up in that stand that day. And sometimes when you're trying to take a pee, you got a lot of stuff on, so maybe you unclip and you're trying to do what you got to do. And I joked with him, I said, hey, man, you better stay clipped in. Like, that's the last way you want to fall out of a tree stand while you're doing that. You know what
exactly,
I mean? Like, adding, injury, embarrassment to injury on top of it,
Yeah.
We're like, oh, ha, ha, ha. A couple hours later, we're sitting up there and we kept hearing like just a tick noise. We thought it was just the platform of the stand. Well, come find out, it was an old strap. And the way it was set up, it was like rubbing and we didn't really see that. And you could tell it was an old strap it was old faded strap.
Yeah.
And sure enough, the top strap gave loose and that stand went straight forward. And there was, the way it was, I was set to the right, he was set to the left, at pretty much like a 45-degree angle. There was a branch in between us. And I remember hearing it tick, and it kind of ticked one time more a little bit later. And then all of a sudden I just heard it snap. Well, that strap, he was higher than me. It came around and hit me on the head, like just hit me on the side of the head. I was like, whoa. And I looked back and just that fast, and he was just dangling there.
Yeah.
And I will never forget looking down at him kind of like this and him looking up at me and the look on his face. Man, that scared the daylights out of me.
Yeah.
And I'm like, are you okay? And he's like, yeah. He's like, help me up. I'm like, all right. So I help him up, and like there was a branch right there. So he kind of stood there, and we're both like, what just happened? I'm like, dude, that strap broke. And it was right at prime time. And right away I'm like, well, we're done. I'm like, let's get out of here. Let's get out of here.
Yeah.
So we start tearing everything down. So I get my stuff down, and he steps over onto mine. And talking to him about it later, he said when it happened, he said like everything felt like it went in slow-mo. He remembers hearing the folds of the harness go break, 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 break before it caught.
Yeah.
And I mean and that was pretty high. That was on the side of a hill,
Yeah.
where it was looking off this way at 20 feet and looking off that way at like 30 feet.
Right.
It was farther up there.
Yeah.
It was a ways down.
Mm-hmm.
Happened just like that. So you just never know.
Right.
I mean, the moral of the story is, gosh, wear a harness. Just wear a harness. The other moral of the story is use lifelines. We've talked about this before, but just really use them. I know maybe this is kind of a weird time of year to talk about this because hunting seasons are about over, and we're about past the 7 days where guys are taking stands down too. But that's the other part about it too. You take stands down, you kind of get kind of cavalier about like, well, I'll just get the lifeline out of the way and I'll just climb up and do what I do and just take it down as I go. Even using those lineman belts, you know what I mean? To just so you're tied into something.
Tied into something, and you can use both hands.
Yes. Well, in this day and age too, I mean, and we've had this discussion before about saddles versus tree stands. I personally am not a big saddle guy. Mm-hmm. And maybe that's just because of my age and the way I was raised and how I've hunted. I like hunting out of a tree stand. Does hunting out of a tree stand at times, could it create less opportunity, or I can't shoot certain directions out of a stand? Yeah, maybe. But I feel like there's also kind of like the weak side of a saddle too.
Oh, for sure.
Now there are ways that you can flip the rope around and so you can shoot in a lot of different directions, but I also look at saddles and I see when they're using aiders on the bottom of their tree stand steps, and then they're climbing up and setting it up and then tearing it down as they go in the dark, you know what I mean? In the cold. It's like, man, you just got to be really careful with what you're doing. Yeah. You need to really make sure you're really confident in the procedure and how you're getting that stuff all up there. Right. Because it can happen fast.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
So, but it's pretty interesting.
Yeah. And not only, take all the right precautions, have a lifeline, have a harness, but also, like Cole said, it's not really the best time of year, but also be thinking about freshening up your straps, making sure that they're not super tight to the point where they can go,
If they feel like they're a banjo string, they're too tight. Yeah. If you go out there and you look at your strap and it's starting to create like a dip, and the tree is growing out over it, they're too tight. Yeah. If the straps are starting to get pretty faded, time to maybe think about getting new ones.
Yeah. And with the time of year, being the off season, it's the right time to do that. Get all your safety stuff in check. Go to the shows. There's probably great deals on lifelines and harnesses, all that stuff. So, like Cole was saying, like it's kind of a weird time because I feel like this should probably be maybe happening as you're really setting stands, getting ready for the season. But really, this is something that you should be thinking about kind of year round and making sure everything is perfect and set up right.
Well, and the other thing I'll say about that too, not just about straps on sticks and straps on stands, but also the cables on stands. Yeah. I have a couple stands that we were just looking at. We tore stuff down that I looked at that, and you saw me, I was kind of eyeing them up, and I'm like, there's a lot of great stands out there. There's a lot of great stands that make a lot of companies that make high quality stands. But the reality is that if they sit out there year after year after year through the rain and the cold and the rain and the fog and the heat and the cold, day after 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 day, the rubber along those cables, it'll start to get brittle. It breaks off, and then all of a sudden you expose some of that, and then the rust starts to set in on that steel. Yeah. And so you just have to be very conscious of that and just be double checking some of that stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
Even like stands that we've set this year, next spring or next summer going into the fall, it's crazy how much that tree grows.
It's wild.
And how much it tightens it right up.
It really is.
Yeah, it really tightens it up.
Yep.
So, yeah, just be double checking stuff. It's just, it's not worth the fall.
Yep.
Yeah, it's definitely not worth the fall.
Yeah.
And like I said, dude, I appreciate you talking about that Bathmophobia stuff. It's, it's something that it's discouraging to see when it really hits you, you know?
Yeah. I think it's the reason it's hard is just because it's involving something that I literally think about every single day, and that's all I want to do is do it. And then when I get the chance to do it, it can really kind of screw with it a little bit.
Yeah.
But for the most part, though, I mean, I try my best to kind of hide it and just really get through it and still be able to go and do it, especially when I'm filming too, because like I would hate to miss an opportunity filming something really cool and have to miss it because I can't, do what I need to do in the stand. So, but for the most part, I mean, it hasn't really stopped us from doing anything. I mean, maybe it made us make a couple different decisions on where we're going to sit or how we're going to sit it, but
well, that's generally just hunting with two people altogether, because if you're just hunting by yourself and where you would hunt with two people, it can often change.
Definitely.
Because you can maybe finagle one stand up there, but then you try to put two and it just really gets it.
You kind of need a really
it gets it kind of picky.
Yeah. But
yeah, it's really something.
It is. It's crazy. It's so mind-boggling, but it is what it is.
Yeah, I never would have thought.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like I said, that's one thing that I mean, those types of screw-in steps, they can work really good. And then you can, but sometimes if they've got like some sort of rubber on them, or just your feet get muddy.
Yeah, exactly.
You can slip off of them.
Yeah.
That was part of what we were dealing with when we took stands down. I was a little bit nervous that day.
Yeah, because
it was super wet.
Yeah, foggy.
And we were out there and it was muddy and it was a bit cold, and then everything's slippery and the trees are wet.
Yeah.
And just take your time. I was like, okay, we don't need to rush this.
Yeah, we got all day.
How do we get these down the right way so we don't slip and fall? Mm-hmm. That's the other thing that I've really gotten to do too. If I'm going out by myself, I'll tell Tatum where I'm going to be going. Hey man, not hey man, but like, hey man.
Yeah.
But where am I going to be? Hey, this is where I'm going to be. Or hey, I'm going to be setting a stand by myself today. This is where I'm going to be if you don't hear from me in a couple hours.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Definitely.
Just letting people know.
Right. Yep.
Because if the last thing you want to do is if you fall and then you're laying there.
Yeah, and there's nobody to know what's going on.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Well, the last thing I will say about it too is the Bathmophobia a couple times has really brought out your temper.
Yeah.
I saw you punch a tree.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not just talking like a gentle tap. You gave it a straight right pretty hard.
Yeah. Yeah, no, definitely. Yeah, it's frustrating. Super frustrating. I mean,
and I mean, it's like anytime with like a temper, right? You just start to see red. And when you got to the bottom of the tree, you were seeing red.
Yeah, I mean, like I was just saying, it's like it can be so frustrating because you just want to go and hunt and enjoy it.
Just want to do it.
You just want to do it and enjoy it and have fun. And then when you have something like that go down and you have one of those little flare-ups, wrecks the entire morning, wrecks everything. And it's like, it just sucks. I hate it.
Yeah.
Well,
the one thing the last thing I'll add on to that as well is if you're listening to this and you have kids, youth harnesses are not that expensive. Go and get one.
Right.
Hunter Safety Systems has some pretty cool little youth harnesses.
Yeah.
Jet wears a youth harness.
Yep.
And from the day we climb up in trees, he never has climbed up with me ever without a harness on.
Right.
We just don't do it.
Yeah.
He's always got his harness on. So far, we only hunt out of ladder stands, so I can kind of follow him up.
Yeah.
And then when we get up there and boom, he ties in.
Yeah. Yep.
And again, they don't know what they don't know. So if you can establish that off the bat, like, hey man, this is how we do this.
Yeah.
This is what we do. We always wear a harness just in case we slip and fall. It's going to catch you.
Yeah.
You're not going to fall all the way to the ground.
Yeah, exactly.
So I think that's a really important thing too.
100%.
Yeah. Yep, absolutely. All right, let's wrap it up. Hey, episode 90 in the books.
Crazy.
Big 90.
Yes.
You were telling a funny story. We're going to be heading to Pennsylvania in a couple weeks. Oh, we're talking about that restaurant we went to that had bingo.
Oh yeah.
Gosh, that guy was hilarious.
Yeah.
So as we're eating supper, they like certain day a week, they have like a legit like bingo league or something, or like bingo.
Yeah.
And so you can buy in so much for a card, and then they just play bingo all night. Yeah. And I don't even know if it was for money or if it was like for gift cards or if it was just people wanting to play bingo.
Yeah.
But that guy was funny. The way I've actually got the perfect sound effect, because the way he was doing his bingo, his announcing was pretty funny.
Yeah.
It wasn't like it wasn't like, okay, you're playing bingo, like B73, B73. He was like, the next number is B73. That's B73.
From the time we sat down to the time we left, nonstop.
Yeah, and then the next one would be like, I-22. That's an I-22.
Just like,
the next one is O46. O4, then a 6.
We're sitting there like, oh my gosh, guy. But it was funny because like we're like, when is this gonna stop? Like they gotta be kind of finishing up.
Oh no, dude, he kept going.
Bro, you could hear it from the park.
Next letter is G16. G16. That's a 1, then a 6.
Yeah, it was pretty funny.
He was really into it.
Yeah.
It was awesome. I was really enjoying it. I think Susie thought it was really annoying.
Yeah.
But I thought it was awesome.
Yeah, I was just laughing the entire time. But yeah.
Yep. Hey, we need to start thinking about where we're going to be eating. We got to start thinking about scoping out some good restaurants. We've got a little bit of a roster for Harrisburg. We got, where we go? Gilligan's. Mm-hmm. Gilligan's. Then there was a sports bar down the way from Gilligan's. What was that place called?
Ted's.
That had a little Midwest feel. Mm-hmm. And then there's some place on the river. Remember that river spot?
Don't remember what that one's called.
Susie liked that spot.
Longhorn Steakhouse.
Longhorn Steakhouse is always a good one.
Yep.
I'll tell you what, towards the beginning of the trip, I think maybe the day on one of the travel days, we probably just go to the staple and just get that out of the way right off the bat.
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about?
Yes.
Texas Roadie.
Yeah.
You got to get a Texas Roadie in there.
Yep.
Texas Roadie gets a little harder during the shows because on the weekends, Texas Roadie gets a little bit busy.
Yeah, definitely.
And it's hard to get into. But I'll tell you a little secret about that. What we figured out, if you really want to do Texas Roadie, you don't want to wait, try to sit at the bar.
Yep. Exactly.
Yep. A little less privacy, but that's okay. So sometimes we'll sit at the bar.
Yep.
But yep, we got a few places that we got to go eat.
Yeah.
Hey, we've only got like 9 days of show there, and day of setting up, and then we got some time. We're gonna be there for a couple weeks.
Yeah.
All right, another podcast in the books. Ozonics Killerwinds podcast. Thanks for listening to episode 90. Thanks for listening all this time. Sorry if we don't have a good conversation. We try really hard.
See you next week.
Stay classy.